Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and today I'm going to be reviewing Brook City, designed by Adam and Brady Sadler and published by Blacklist Games. As you can see, Brook City is played across a massive board, but as with most games by the Sadler brothers, the real heart of the game is in the cards. Brook City is, like Street Masters before it and Alter Quest, which has recently been kickstarted, a modular deck system game. And what that means is that most of the game's mechanics emerge from the interactions between three different decks, or at least three different types of decks. Brook City comes with a number of options for different cops that you can play, and for solo I recommend that you play with either one or two, usually two, so you can interact between them. But here are a few of your options in the game. There are a couple more in the main box, and then expansions add even more variety. As you can see, each cop will have their own name, cool art, special abilities at the bottom of the card, and symbols that indicate their particular strength as police officers. So for example, we know that Moira and Gabe are both reckless cops. Ricky and Wilson are just sort of regular cops who go by the rules. And then Selena Gonzalez here is a little bit extra cautious. Each police officer comes with their own truly unique deck, which gives a lot of variety to the game as you play. Every single cop that you try will truly feel individual and different from the other ones. And of course, what is a good police game without some interesting criminals to pursue? In addition to each cop deck, you'll also be going up against one of the criminal decks that's in the box, or one of the different ones from the expansions. Each of these decks will differ a little bit mechanically, which means that you'll have a slightly different strategy to pursue each game. As you draw your own cop cards from your cop decks, you'll also be drawing and dealing with cards from the criminal deck that you choose. And of course, what would be a cop and criminal drama without a case to solve? So in addition to the cop deck and the criminal deck, you'll also be using a case deck to make your adventure happen and give your cops some challenges to overcome in the game. If you're thinking to yourself, hey, that sounds kind of like Sentinels of the Multiverse, you're absolutely right. The MDS, or Modular Deck System games designed by the Sadler brothers, have some serious shared DNA with Sentinels of the Multiverse, in which players have their own hero decks, but play against a villain deck and an environment deck. It's very easy to liken that to the cop deck, the criminal deck, and the case deck. So if you've never played a Sadler Brothers game before, but you do like Sentinels of the Multiverse, think a police game with some of the same flavor. However, unlike Sentinels, which is just a card game, the Sadler Brothers also are interested in tactical movement, which is where the board comes in. As you pull cards from the criminal and case decks, different criminals, clues, and leads will pop up across this map. And part of your job is not only to play the right cards, but to make the right moves. In order to achieve that, you're going to need some vehicles. And while you might have to ditch vehicles throughout the game, you'll typically need one to move quickly enough to block off criminals or to make it from building to building in time to get your business done. And to that end, there's some pretty awesome vehicle minis in the game. If you ever wanted to take somebody's car in the service of the law, here's your opportunity. The game also has some pretty sweet boat miniatures and bikes. So in addition to managing your decks of cards, you're also going to have to manage your understanding of locations on the board and how to get your cops to the right places at the right times. You definitely need dice in this game because in order to make progress on cases and eventually bust criminals, you're going to need to roll successes on these dice. As is typical at this point of the Sadler brothers, the dice are very fun in this game because they can never completely disappoint you. Even if you're not rolling well, there is always a way to do something about it. Because each die is going to have three types of symbol on the faces. You can have a regular success, you can have a critical success, which allows you to roll another die, or you can have a hunch. Some faces include a success and a hunch. What the hunches do is they don't count as a success yet, but if you roll a hunch, you can take a hunch token, and then when you roll another hunch later, you can spend that token to turn that die face into a success. However, there are other ways that you'll want to deploy your hunches, so you want to roll them even if they don't help you make progress on a case right away. As you roll and make progress, you'll be placing progress tokens on criminal cards. However, you're also going to have to manage your own stress tokens, which can pile up on your cop cards and get you fired, thus causing you to lose the game, and influence tokens, which help your bad guys gain influence in the city. If your main suspect gains too much influence, that's the other way that you'll lose. So the game is all about balancing the progress that you make against the stress that you take and the influence that you allow the enemy to gain. So let's have some final thoughts. I think Brook City is a good game. It's another solid entry into the Sadler Brothers Modular Deck System line of games, and if you want to have a buddy cop adventure, then I think that this is a game that might be really enjoyable for you. The first really good thing I noticed about Brook City is that the cop decks really do feel different from each other. So every cop you play is a new experience and a new way to approach the game. Each cop will have specific strengths and weaknesses and interesting abilities in their cards that really encourage you to try different playstyles and that will reward different sorts of things depending on who you're playing. There are also cops that are much more or less complicated to play, and it's a really satisfying thing to get to know a new one or to revisit an old one. The tactical movement in Brook City is also good fun. At first I felt a little bit concerned about getting my cars around the board, especially because they can only move so far and you're trying to chase down a bunch of different criminals and clues, but it actually turned out to be something that I really enjoyed. I liked knowing when to ditch my car, knowing when to commandeer a different car, trying to figure out the best strategies for movement around the board and how to maximize the rules that I was given to move. That actually ended up being something I appreciated about Brook City and a fun part of the puzzle of the game. Also, as usual, I love the way that die rolls work in a game of Brook City. Probably the best thing about a Sadler Brothers game is that no roll is ever truly bad, because even if you don't get what you want this time, you can gain, in this case, hunch tokens that will help you get where you need to go next time. Hunch tokens are also a key part of the rest of the game, so trying to figure out whether to hoard them or to give them up for some reason is a real difficult choice within the world of Brook City. And in general, the choices in Brook City are good. There's a lot going on the board, and you have to ask yourself, okay, am I just going to put out fires? Do I want to work on the larger case? Am I going to chase down this criminal, or am I going to pick up a clue? You have to make decisions that will impact the rest of your game and that give you something to think about every turn. So now for some critiques. The first one is that Brook City can run just a little bit long. This is especially true if you've been rolling very badly, but you know that you're still going to be able to win the game. Sometimes it means that the game is going to be a little bit longer, and it can slightly overstay its welcome. I've always had fun with my plays of Brook City, but I've had a couple that ran longer than I thought should be the playtime. I also think there's just a slight disconnect between the theme and the gameplay. The gameplay is really, really fun, but it's supposed to be a game about a cop movie, and while the flavor text and the art and a lot of the little touches to the game definitely suggest that, it also occasionally feels like the enemy, the criminal that you're going against, and the case deck don't entirely mesh together very well. I really would like to imagine that the big criminal that I'm trying to take down is the same person who committed the big crime that I'm trying to solve, but that doesn't always entirely connect. I think that part of this is just the modular deck system, where you throw decks together, let them interact, and see how it goes. And that's something that I generally like in games. I'm just not entirely convinced that this was a perfect spot-on marriage of gameplay and theme. That said, I really appreciate Brook City. I think it's a fun game. I really like it. I also deeply appreciate its scope and its ambition. I really like what the Sadler brothers are doing in terms of design, and I think that modular deck system games really create these amazing in-game stories and adventures that take things thematically to a higher level than most board games that I play. Brook City is not entirely perfect, but I do think it's very solid, and for that reason I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. If you like the police theme and you also want to play a game where you're on a grand adventure and slightly unpredictable things can happen, then I think that Brook City might be a very good choice for you. Happy gaming.
Thanks so much for watching another Dice Tower video. If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to the channel for more fun, comprehensive board game coverage. Also, consider joining us at one of our events. Come to Dice Tower Retreat, a small, intimate gathering where gaming is king. Join us for Dice Tower Cruise, the largest board game cruise. Attend Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for gaming fun on the West Coast, or Dice Tower East in Orlando in sunny Florida. Dice Tower Conventions, the friendliest gaming conventions on Earth. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.